Start recording. Now, if you want to and you feel comfortable with doing it, just pop in your name in the chat and tell us where you're based, just in the chat as we get the conversation going. Now, Angela, we're going to sort of start the discussion. And really what I think has inspired me to bring you on this Fireside Chat is the fact that you are a creative, you have a very strong creative background. And one thing I know is that quite a number of creatives tend to struggle with, how do I take this talent I've got and how do I make a business out of it? How do I structure it in such a way that it's able to generate profits and help me sustain my life? So that's one thing. Well, let's go back to your early beginnings, Angela. If you want to just give us a bit of background, growing up, what was it like? But also, were there any strong role models, someone that you sort of looked up to that inspired you to be who you are today? Yeah.
Well, I grew up in an era where there was a lot of strong females in the music sector. And so I grew up with all these empowering lyrics from artists like Shania Twain and Pink and Madonna. And it's been interesting for me now to look back on the careers of those women and to recognize that they were singing about a reality that I thought I took for granted that existed. And in fact, they were not living in that reality, but they were aspiring to it and writing about it. And in fact, they inspired a whole generation to expect that kind of respect and that kind of empowerment. And I'm really grateful to them for setting that mindset for my whole generation of women to believe in themselves like that.
Fantastic. It's always good to get that perspective of where you've come from and just who are some of the inspirations. Now,
yeah, I read a lot. I should add, I read a lot of biographies. I've always been a big fan of biographies. So like in my late teens, early 20s, I wanted to be a singer. And I did make a few albums and did a few shows and things like that. But I read a lot of biographies of women like that. And I think that seeing that really helped me to shape who I became. And then, of course, there were real life role models along the way as well.
Oh, that's really nice. I know that, I think it was last week, I was listening to one of Melody Hobson's podcast, and she was saying, you can have all these role models that you never have met, but you've read about them, you've sort of read their biographies and all that kind of stuff, and you sort of feel like you know them already, and they inspire you to do what you want to do. So it's nice. So with your music, now let's sort of go down the music lane. How did that turn out? Was it something like a hobby that you dropped down the road, or did you continue to explore it?
I haven't put a label on it, but basically being a musician, I noticed that the difficulties that other musicians and myself were facing. And so I have this creative brain. It doesn't just write song lyrics and melodies. It also is like a creative problem-solving machine. So I sort of like swerved out of my musician lane and into the lane of helping to create a better ecosystem for musicians in my city. So I started this online newsletter. It was called the Happy Friday Club. And back then we didn't have social media, and basically everyone was doing stuff via email. So you'd get a lot of emails with like jokes and inspirational stories and stuff like that. I would put all of that into an email on Friday and then add tidbits about the musicians I knew and what they were doing and what I was up to. And that just, that grew into a website and into a message board. And one day when I had left my tech support job to become a full-time sorry, I don't know where that left off. I decided to leave my corporate job and become a full-time website developer right when the dot-com bubble burst. So I kind of had a feeling that websites weren't quite over. So I knew I needed to do something sort of part-time to cover my bills and stuff. I was a single mom and I had a daughter in elementary school. So one day after I picked her up from school, I drove through the local strip mall in my town, and I thought I would get a retail job, but I saw a sign, and I still don't know what possessed me to follow this instinct, but in my sweatpants, my gray, ugliest sweatpants with the hole in the knee, and with my daughter in tow, I walk into this place that says Ranger on the door, and I kind of had a vague idea that it was a newspaper. And I went up to the receptionist and I said, "You guys don't need like any writers or anything." I had never once aspired to be a writer. I had no journalism background. I just did it on a whim, as I often do. I'm an Aries. And right that moment, the publisher walked by and he heard me and he said, what do you write about? And I knew this was the wrong answer, but I said it anyway. I said music, but I could maybe write about other things. And he goes, "Do you have time for coffee?" So he and I walked down a few doors down to the Starbucks. And on the way there, he asked me if I was a musician and what my band name was. And I said, "It's Angela Jossy Band." And he said, "Are you in any way affiliated with the Happy Friday Club?" And I just stopped and looked at him because, to my knowledge, only my friends were receiving that. I was sending it specifically to people that I knew. And apparently he had invented this new newspaper called Weekly Volcano. I had never heard of it. He was reading my Happy Friday newsletter for story ideas for Weekly Volcano. And he basically hired me on the spot as a freelancer, and worked my way up into a full-time position. And until I was associate editor, I was there 5 years. And his name's Ron Swarner, and he was a great, great mentor to me. He taught me everything I know about journalism. And I got some other freelance gigs along the way with other publications. And I wrote 6 stories a week. I laid out 3 different newspapers. They had 3 newspapers there: the Airlifter, the Ranger, and the Weekly Volcano. And I did a lot of different jobs there, and I just loved it. In 2008, the crash happened, and a lot of journalists got laid off, and I was one of them. And I remember he was so torn up about it, and I was comforting him, saying, "I'm very resourceful. Don't worry, I'll figure it out." And I did. There was some rough patches, but I went to festival organizing, which is something I'm also really passionate about. I consider that another one of my art forms. So, it's just kind of cool that, 15 years later, the Weekly Volcano is no more. And I decided to yet again leave a corporate job and go out independent. And this time I had done a lot of reading and learned a lot about financial literacy. And I had used my time with a full-time job managing an apartment building to live very much beneath my means and slowly build a portfolio of real estate. I own 2 duplexes now. And so I was able to leave my job, and I had a little bit of 401k money, and I was able to reach out to the family that owned Weekly Volcano, and they let me buy it from them. And our first real issue, we did some event programs over the summer to help out with some festivals, but our first real issue is going to come out October 4th. And I completely sold out all the ads by myself, which I never wanted to sell ads, but I have such a great network and such a supportive community that I think, fingers crossed, we can call this a big success.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Because I've seen that recently, because I follow you and connected to you on LinkedIn, and I've seen that recently you started, you posted about Weekly Volcano and the work you're doing there. Do you just want to tell us a bit about what Weekly Volcano does, and how we can support that movement?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, it's mainly known as an entertainment paper for the Tacoma, Pierce County area. In the past, it had a much bigger circulation. It was in Olympia and Puyallup and a bunch of the surrounding communities. I know if you're not from here, those names don't mean anything to you. But in case you wanted to know how to pronounce Puyallup, it's pronounced Puyallup. All the foreigners can never figure that out, even the other Americans. So we're starting with Tacoma, and we are publishing a printed newspaper once a month. It used to be a weekly. It's a once a month paper now. And then we have a weekly newsletter. So I'm trying to get as many people signed up to our weekly newsletter as possible. And our website is a placeholder website. I don't love it yet, but I have a greater vision for it in the future, We're doing what we can afford to right now, but we have a Squarespace website at weekly-volcano.com. And I say the dash is where we put the love in, because somebody bought the domain name after they shut everything down and I couldn't get the Weekly Volcano domain name. So maybe someday we'll retrieve that. But right now we've got the dash. And we've got almost 400 people signed up for the newsletter, even though I haven't published one yet. And I think that's pretty remarkable because we only started about a month ago. So I feel very blessed. So yeah, sign up for the newsletter. It is based in Tacoma, but I'm gonna put a lot of interesting things in there. And art and music is universal. If it's good music, you'll like it. If it's good art, you're still gonna like it. And I'm very, very interested in entrepreneurs and small businesses. So one of my plans for the website is that it's going to have a marketplace on it, so that small businesses in the Tacoma area can have a little store on there, and then consumers can shop local with the same convenience that they can on sites like Amazon. So that's something that we're building. We're fundraising for it. It's not going to be cheap. But we think it's really, really important to educate people on what happens when we shop local and how we can keep our money circulating locally.
And that's really great what you're doing there. Simon has asked, do you have a link to your newsletter? So in case people want to register, do you have it close by?
Yeah, it's weekly-volcano/newsletter. And if you go to our website, you should get a pop-up right away to sign up for the newsletter anyway. They also had shut down all the social media sites. So we've had to build our audience from zero again.
Okay. All right. So just carrying on with the conversation now.
I'm hearing some background noise.
Yeah. I think I've muted the person. So just going on and thinking about that chance meeting you had with the editor, the guy that hired you on the spot. Now, some people in your situation might have been, might not have had the courage to go into, the building and ask, so you guys looking for a writer and things like that. Now, what I think my question here is, say, think about young people that are starting out. Maybe they're either writers or they're designers, or people that have a craft and are trying to build their courage. They're trying to build their portfolio. Thinking about you that started your career as a writer, what are some of the words? What would you encourage them to be doing for someone that is trying to get their fit into the door of some organization or get a new client or things like that? What should they be doing to get those first sales or customers?
Well, the first thing I would do is connect with your community locally. There's a lot of opportunities probably in every town to volunteer for things like festivals. What I love about festivals is that you can get in front of 10,000, 20,000 people in one day if you play your cards right. And becoming a part of it, volunteering to be a part of it, will even get you a deeper relationship with other people doing things that you love. So the more networking you do, the more opportunities you'll know about. There's also like arts cooperatives that you can join. I don't know about in the UK, but in the US, we have things like arts commissions, both city and state level, and probably national as well. They put in grant opportunities and art submissions. Usually museums even do like submission periods where you can, submit something to be in their collection. Coffee shops and bars and things like that. A lot of times if you approach them and say, hey, I would like to put some art up on your walls. Could we do that for, say, a month, and we'll help you out with some promotion and stuff? I found, at least in Tacoma, people are pretty open to things like that. So we used to have something every third Thursday called Art Walk, where all the galleries and the museums are open to the public. And because they were so spread out, it was difficult for people to figure out where to go for Art Walk. It wasn't really even walkable. So because of my festival training, I knew that it was possible to rent these buses from a company that provides school buses. So I started renting a school bus and selling tickets to go on art bus to travel from gallery to gallery. And we'd spend like 20 minutes at each place, and I'd have a celebrity tour guide, some like local celebrity. So that was really fun. We did that for 7 years, once a month on the third Thursday. Organizing things like that in your community, using like meetup.com to find people in your area, or Facebook groups, posting on Instagram, seeking opportunities to collaborate. All of those things help you to get in front of more people. And the more people you know, the more opportunities will present themselves. I'm not really smarter than anybody. I just have a really great network because I've been a part of so many projects. And so I'm sort of a trusted brand all by myself. And then you add Weekly Volcano to that, it just kind of super powered everything. Now I can send an email to somebody and say, I have an idea, but I don't have time to do it. And sometimes if I strike the person at the right moment, they'll just do it, to take my idea and run with it. And that is a beautiful position to be in. So I highly encourage people to get out there in the community, volunteer. Don't always be looking for that immediate payday, even though that's so tempting, especially in this economy. I understand. But when there's chaos, there's opportunity. So when there's big shifts in society, you kind of look and see where are things going. I would encourage artists to do what I did and get some financial literacy behind you. I read books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and listened to a lot of podcasts and, read, like I said, biographies and stuff like that, so that I could get some stability under me. I realized that I received a lot of awards and a lot of recognition, but prestige without money or power is kind of a weird spot. So I realized that I needed to get better with money and make sure I built some stability behind me so that I can do more things on a volunteer basis. And I'm not looking to these organizations that are struggling just as much as I am to make things happen. I really want to be able to make things happen and not have it depend on whether or not someone can pay me to do it. So I highly encourage people to learn about financial literacy, learn how to invest and make your money work for you so that you can have a baseline to build upon.
And I think that's a, very, very helpful advice that you've given on there. Making sure that you educate yourself financially, or, trying your best to understand the system and how things work, so that, because the thing is, when you think about creatives and you think about the kind of work, sometimes, it takes a bit of time between one job and the other. So if it's not flowing continuously, it can be sort of create some kind of financial anxiety where there's a job and, the next 3 months you're looking around and there's nothing coming. What do you think about part-time jobs? Do you think that can be a way to supplement income from, some of the creative stuff that one does?
Sure. I'm really loving these new type of jobs, these at-will type of jobs, like Uber Eats or DoorDash, or something like Fiverr or something like that. If you're an artist, and you've got graphic design skills, you can work on like a project by project basis. And that's a good way to supplement your income too. A 9-to-5 job, I found, for me personally, I think that I have a pretty good left brain and right brain, but switching between the two is not easy for me. So if I have to be very logical and money oriented and, working on paperwork and like strenuous mental exercises, at the end of the day, I don't really have much creativity left with me. I don't feel like drawing. I don't feel like singing or playing the guitar or writing something. I just feel like zoning out in front of the TV. And when I feel like that, I decided to switch to things like YouTube and podcasts so that I can at least be learning something when I don't feel like expressing myself. I just feel like disappearing into my own mind for a while.
Great. And just to add on there, sort of contributing to what you said about voluntary work, so quite a few people do think, why should I do work without getting paid? But the thing there, like you said, is it does give you, depending on how well you play it, it gives you an opportunity to do things that you might not necessarily have been able to do, to get in front of people that you might not necessarily have been able to do. So in a sense, I feel like, when you're starting early on, and, voluntary work is not only when you're starting, I think it can be a lifetime work, but it's always good to have some kind of way you give back to society, number one, but also by voluntary work, you're able to expand your horizon, you're able to connect with people. And that way, because you're not really looking for anything in return per se, especially financially at that point in time, people are willing to try and give you a chance just because, you're trying to help out anyway. So why not? So I think, that piece of advice really does work, because I am a university lecturer, and when you're speaking to young students, well, I'm young, but I know when you're speaking to young students and you tell them, you can volunteer, and it just, to quite a few of them, it sounds ridiculous. But I do make the argument that voluntary work has its place. It can get you in front of the right people, and it's something that you should try. So I'm happy that you're saying that. Now, if
can I just add on to that real quick?
Yeah.
First of all, you will meet people that you would never meet otherwise, and they will be people like you. So you will be building a strong network of the right kind of person. You can also think of it as part of your marketing budget that you don't have. You can give some of your time towards this marketing budget that you can't spend, right? So those two reasons alone are worth it. And it also just feels good, looks great on your resume. It helps you come across as a caring person, and people like to help caring people, right? If you're just seem like you're just out to get something, it turns people off. And don't be afraid to start something. Like, I started Art Bus. I started Speakeasy Arts Cooperative. I was broke. I found 15 other artists. I found a space that we could rent. We each paid a portion of the rent. We had the greatest parties. We ended up winning an award for being the best art gallery in Western Washington. We were in the top 5 best art galleries. And we were only open for a little over a year. That's quite a huge achievement. And that was possible because I brought in other people that I thought were super talented and smart, and we approached it together. Did we make much money? No. But what we did was we made waves. We showed art. We showcased other artists. We showcased other musicians. We hosted fundraisers for different things in our space. We had parties. We had CD releases. We had costume events. We had themed art displays. It was like the funnest year of my life, even though I was the brokest I'd ever been. And that effort just leveled up every other part of my life.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Angela. You took the words right out of my mouth. There's nothing for me to add on there. And just the same way you said it, that it's a way of sort of building your social capital, just like what you said. It's taking like your marketing budget, and that really, if you look at it from a business perspective, that's really what it is. Because the more you do these events and you're successful at them and you volunteer and you meet people, because rightfully, like you said, voluntary work is one thing that would get you in front of people that you ordinarily wouldn't be able to get in front of. So I think this is Angela and I championing voluntary work where you can. It really does make a huge difference. So I'm happy that you said that. Now let's just move on to the side of Duchess of Tacoma. How that came about. It's quite an interesting name. I know the origins. Not quite a few people know the origins. So it will be good to know, how you got to that, what that means to people in the downtown area when they hear Duchess of Downtown Tacoma and stuff like that. So if you just want to chat a bit about that, Angela.
Okay, I can tell you the story. I don't know if I can tell you how other people feel about it, but I'll tell you what happened. I have been involved with a lot of the business district stuff, and helping small businesses has been a passion of mine for many years. And downtown Tacoma was going through a period where there wasn't a lot of foot traffic. We have a mall that's a few miles away that people go to basically to do most of their shopping. So most of the shops downtown are like little mom and pop stores owned by individuals. Most of the time they don't even have employees. They just run it themselves, and they're, kind of a passion project. And brick and mortar is a really tough business to have. So I started thinking to myself, Tacoma has this thing, they call it Gritty City, Gritty Tacoma. It sort of had this blue collar sort of reputation and branding. And I always kind of resented that because we're always being compared to Seattle, which is the bigger city that's an hour away. And Tacoma's always like in the shadow of Seattle. And what actually ends up happening is a lot of our talent usually has to go to Seattle to get somewhere with their careers. And then it's just easier for them to say, well, I'm from Seattle, because people from around the world never heard of Tacoma. So, we sort of have this thing going. And so Gritty Tacoma, sure, we have blue collar just like any other city. But we also have amazing, big, beautiful theaters. We have several gorgeous museums. We have the ballet, we have the opera, we have the artists, we have the musicians, we have the orchestras, we have all the things. So I wanted to paint Tacoma in a more prestigious light. And I thought I liked the sound of Duchess of Downtown. So I started a blog that it was anonymously done. And I would just go around Tacoma's downtown and take photos of cool things they could buy and where they could buy them. Because I figured, for myself, if I see what it's like inside of a store, I'm more likely to park my car and go in there. If I've never been there, it just feels like, oh, I'll just go get it online, or, oh, I'll just go to the mall or something. And so I wanted to give people a sneak peek of what's inside and let them see those treasures. So I started this anonymous blog. Then I brought in a couple other people to go and help me and cover more ground. And I noticed that because of my relationship with the volcano before that, I have a large social media following, and I wanted to get more traffic to the blog. And I sort of had to use my own channels to do that. And I got to a point where I felt dishonest not telling them that I was actually the one doing it. So I sort of came out and said, actually, this is something I'm doing. And then I became Duchess of Downtown, which was never really my goal. So then I became the Duchess of Downtown, and people started to call me that. And then, I don't know, a year or two after that happened, a cousin that I'd never met reached out to me on social media, and he had done our family genealogy. And he said, you don't know how ironic it is that you're called the Duchess of Downtown. Look at this. And it turns out, like, I'm related to the Queen of England. I'm related to all these other people. And I had no idea. In fact, I'm related to royalty on both sides of my family, both my mother and my father. And I had no idea. So while I'm not a real Duchess, I do apparently have royal blood. So there you go, people in England.
Exactly.
I had no idea, but apparently that's so. And I feel like that's a lot of people, apparently. If you I saw someone was posting like Americans going to castles, talking about how their ancestors, and then the people who own those properties kind of just roll their eyes like, yeah, you and everybody else. So I'm not saying I'm special, but turns out, yeah.
Oh, that's very, very, very interesting to know. Anyways, whenever you visit London, we'll take you to Buckingham Palace. So
oh yeah, I might take you up on that.
welcome.
I've never been to Europe. I've always wanted to go.
Oh, you're very welcome whenever you pop by. Yeah. Yes, I know. Simon said, "Wow," in the presence of royalty. So it's really amazing to hear that.
I would be kicked out of the Buckingham Palace just like anyone else. So don't get the wrong impression.
Well, you never know. You never know till you try. Okay, that's good to know. Now, moving on so you wear several hats. You're a media person, you're a community builder, and now we move on to the real estate side of things. You've got into real estate a few years ago. You said, and you've been able to buy your second duplex yourself, and sort of that has given you sort of the financial freedom to really focus on the voluntary work you do and the creativity side of things. What would you say? So again, for creatives that are trying to get some kind of financial, independence, you've said that you've read a lot of books, you listen to a lot of podcasts. do you just want to tell us how did you get into like real estate investment? I think that'll be the first place to stand. Then we can take the questions from there.
Oh yeah, I love this topic. Okay, so after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, Amazon served me up another book because I kind of thought, oh yeah, real estate's very, very cool, but I mean, I don't have money, so I don't know if I can do that. And then this book came up that I'm going to probably mess up this title, but it was like How to Invest in Real Estate with Low or No Money Down by Brandon Turner. And so I got that audiobook and I listened to it and I was super inspired, like, oh, I could actually do that. I could actually do that. And then he was the host of a podcast called Bigger Pockets Podcast. And so I started listening to the podcast and I started at number 1 and I went through like over 100. I just could not get enough of these Bigger Pockets podcasts because they would bring in all these different people of all different walks of life and telling their stories of how, you know, some of them were beginners and some of them had gone on to have like huge portfolios and they ended up like buying apartment complexes and, you know, moving into a much higher arena of the multifamily industry. And I felt like I'd found the secret that no one ever tells you about how to escape poverty. Okay, like full stop. That was like what I thought I found. And that journey was so exciting to me. All I wanted to do was show everyone else how to do this, right? And I tried to do that, but I guess not everyone has the risk-taking sort of Aries-ness that I have. So, you know, you can only do so much, but I encourage you all to reach out to Bigger Pockets. They have several podcasts now. There's one that's just called Bigger Pockets Money. There's one for like beginners. There's one for like advanced stuff. They're branching out in different ways. You can find them on YouTube. You can find them on Spotify and iTunes and all this sort of thing. Bigger Pockets is very inspirational and it's all free. They do recommend a book at the end of each of the regular Bigger Pockets, and I was reading all those books too. So as soon as they'd recommend a book at the end of the podcast, I would go buy that book and listen to it too. Like I just devoured all this information. I got a little nuts about it, but it was exciting because before that, I'd always felt like if you don't have money, the only way to get it is if somebody with money gives you a hand up or a handout, or they let you into their club. And this was something that anyone could do. There's programs out there that will pay your entire down payment for you. There's ways that you can like literally pay no money down, buy a house, rent out the bedrooms. They call it house hacking. So you can essentially have no rent and no utilities and put all of that money into a savings account, let other people pay the mortgage for you, and plus a little income for you. And you could just keep stacking doing it like this. So it's exciting. It's very exciting. And it's gotten much harder. I started like in 2016, 2017-ish learning this stuff. Interest rates right now have made that much more difficult to do. But there's also this new thing that I'm learning about. It's called subject to, and it's part of seller financing. So if you want to buy a property from an owner who is ready to sell, but doesn't, you don't have to involve any banks at all. You can just take over their loan, and you usually give them a down payment of some kind. You can work. The beauty of it is that you can make the terms yourself. So there's a saying, like, either we can do your terms and my price, or my terms and your price. So you can actually pay them what they want to be paid if you switch the terms. So I love this new seller finance subject to thing, because you can keep those low interest rates that people got a few years ago and keep your payments down. So it's just a new exciting thing. And I'm also a really big fan of Cody Sanchez. She's a YouTube influencer. She talks about doing that same strategy to buy businesses. So we've got all these people, Gen X and baby boomers and stuff, are starting to retire. And most of them will just shut down their business. They won't even try to sell it or anything. But if you can approach someone who's getting close to retirement age and make some of this like seller finance type arrangement with them, then they actually get a retirement fund from you. And then their business stays in your community, and it isn't sold to some corporation. It doesn't disappear off the landscape. You can keep the personality and the identity of your community by saving these small businesses, and you don't even have to run it yourself. You can hire a manager someone that's more qualified than you in that industry, and they can just take it over, and you have money to live on. The person who used to own it has money to live on, and the community still has all that money circulating. It's a beautiful thing. I really believe in it.
Wonderful, wonderful. You know, I know Cody Sanchez. I call her my sister because I just resonate so much with a lot of things that she teaches. So, and it's amazing. It's really good to know that you follow her too. I follow her on YouTube. So yes, it's fascinating the things, you know, she teaches, and these things, they do work because they're really practical, just common sense things that, you know, she's been able to break down. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah, I don't even think I would have bought Weekly Volcano had I not run across one of her videos. That's what gave me the idea to buy a business instead of another duplex. Because once I'd made the decision to leave my 9-to-5 job, I knew that getting a loan to buy another property was going to be tricky because I already had a debt income ratio issue because I had 2 duplexes that I had to pay mortgages on and only one job. So it was already going to be challenging. Without that job, it was even worse. So I started thinking, because of her video, I started thinking, what local business could I buy? And it didn't take me long at all to land on it, because it was the one business. I actually tried to invest in that business when I worked there because my mom passed away and I had inherited a little bit of money, and I actually asked them if I could invest and they didn't let me. So I'd already kind of planted that seed in their mind that I was interested in that business. So when I circled back to them, it was a much easier conversation, most likely, because that seed had already been planted, and Cody helped me remember that. So I wrote to her and I thanked her for that.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm just going to read some of the chats in the comments. Now, before we carry on, we have giveaways. So we do $4 to $6 worth of goodies to someone in the States, and then we do give out 2 £30 Amazon vouchers to 2 people in the audience. Now, what I'll just simply ask is, if you're based in the States, could you just type your name in the chat so that when we come to do the spinner, you know, we know that you're from the States, and we'll have a spinner just for those in the States. And then every other person would be on the spinner for the Amazon voucher. So please, if you're based in the States, I know Kimberly is, I know Garrett is, I know Angela is, Liam is. So if you are, please pop your name in the chat so that we have a separate spinner for you. So there, Tim says, Angela is a whirlwind of activities with lots of great advice. Her real life stories are inspiring. Angela is a great example of someone placemaking Tacoma into a creative community, and I strongly agree on that. Tacoma sounds as an amazing, vibrant place. I must visit one day. That's what Simon says. And true. I must visit one day as well, Simon. So would love to have you. Okay, this is Garrett and Kimberly reply.
We must all do what Simon says, right?
Yes. Yes, we must. So please, again, if you're based in the USA, please put your name in the chat so that when we do the spinner for the snacks, we have your name on there. Now, as we carry on with the conversation, so now we've been able to sort of see you wear several hats. But before we sort of go into the community building side of things, I think a good question to ask also is, how do you maintain your creativity? I just sort of hanging on what you said, when you maybe have a job or part-time job or something that is maybe administrative, or, you know, those kinds of jobs, sometimes they sort of dull you down on your creativity, which because I am a university professor. Sometimes when it's time to switch back to the creative side of things, I'm a bit lazy, just because I've been on this kind of monotonous activity for some time. Switching to creativity takes a bit of time. So I do understand what you're saying. So for those, and I do consider myself to be a creative person. So for those of us that are creative to some extent, it's not like, people that, paint or write or, sort of are real creatives. What do they do to nurture that creativity? What are some of the exercises or things they can integrate into their routine to sort of spur creativity?
What I do is I engage with other artists. That's what inspires me. I sort of, if you take me into an empty room, I will start designing that room in my head and figure out what I would do with that space. What kind of business would I make? What kind of event would I have there? If I go and I look at visual art, I ask myself, could I do that? What would I do if that was my assignment? Same with music. I just sort of pick apart music. If I watch TV and movies, I find a lot of inspiration in that stuff too. Like my brain is always creating no matter where I am. It's just a matter of execution, if I feel like executing it or not. So I keep a notebook. Okay. I have a notebook, and I also have the notes app on my phone. When I get inspiration or ideas, I write them down. I'm a person who has very vivid dreams. So oftentimes I'll wake up in the morning and I'll write down what my dream was, because sometimes they're like full-blown movies, and I could actually, if I ever had like a movie studio, I could actually make a movie out of that dream. So I definitely have a lot of things I want to do in the future, and I don't always have the bandwidth to do them right now. So I just write them down, put a date on them, and that way they stick with me.
And I think that that's very interesting to say, because there's an entrepreneur that's quite popular in the UK here. His name is Stephen Bartlett, and he does have a podcast called The Diary of a CEO. And I usually follow him on LinkedIn. And one of the things he says is, when you have all these ideas, it's good to sort of write them down and sort of observe that idea that is always in your mind, sort of coming back to you every other month or every other week. It's sort of pressing. And if it keeps pressing for a long time, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months, that might be something that you might consider, putting your time and energy into at some point. So I think what is quite interesting here is that exercise of writing them down, and just, at some point coming back and just exploring all these ideas that you have. And you'll be amazed, some of the ideas that you had that might not have been relevant at that point in time, but are relevant now. So, it's quite good that you've said that. Now, moving on to your community building hat that you wear, and very soon we'll be doing our spinners. One of the questions I would like to ask here is, you're very keen about local businesses. You want businesses to stay local. You want, for example, buying local businesses rather than the owners closing them up. That way they stay open and the money stays within the community. What inspired you to be an advocate of your local community? What's the inspiration behind that?
I think it was just knowing so many small business owners and working with them. I also, one of my best friends, her name's Patricia Lacey Davis. I don't know if you've ever met her. She used to kind of be in that ecosystem with the William Factory. She started a nonprofit organization called Go Local, and I used to help out with that quite a bit. And I was very inspired by her vision and her passion for supporting local businesses and just working with the different business districts. I don't know, I sort of feel like the creative community and the entrepreneur community, those are my people. Like, I relate the most to what they're trying to do. And my creative problem solving brain always wants to figure out how they can be more successful, how they can achieve their dreams, how we can get more people to notice what they're trying to do and support what they're trying to do. It's just something that I've been doing for, I even want to say how many years, probably like 20 or more. So I can't really tell you where it stems from. I think it's just my problem solving brain. I just see them. I see the creative community, the artists, the musicians, and the small business owners. They're all sort of the same to me. They're all people doing something they're passionate about, trying desperately to make a living out of being who they really are. So that's the crux of it.
Okay, that's a wonderful way to put it, Angela. Trying to just support and encourage those that are trying to make a living out of what they enjoy the most. Now, in terms of, and we just begin to wrap up things, and I'll just say if anyone has any questions for Angela, please pop it in the chat. She'll be happy to take questions, especially just around what we're discussing today. Now, as we begin to round up, Angela, and we think about, people that are maybe have been running their businesses for some time. And I remember when we had a focus group earlier in May this year, you were saying something about how, a few people that, want to maybe move away from their business or things like that end up closing the business as opposed to selling it when they could easily have sold it. I just really want to get your thoughts around, people that are selling their businesses. How do they know what opportunities are open to them? Because some people, and I think that might be, one of the challenges of running a small business. You might feel like, it's a small business. I don't really make so much money annually. I don't know who would be interested in buying. Sometimes that's the kind of mentality these business owners have. So they might look at the business and feel like there isn't too much to it, but there might be a lot to it. So for people that want to buy businesses, or for people rather that want to sell their businesses, how do they go about it? What kind of advice would you give to someone that has a business looking to retire and wants to sell it? How do they find someone to buy?
I believe that there are websites for selling businesses. I think that you're right. A lot of people don't put their stuff on there because they think it's not big enough. But you might find someone that's really passionate about the thing that you do, and they might bring a different perspective to it where they can just take it to the next level in ways that you couldn't even dream of. Especially if you've been doing that business for many years, you're probably not staying up to date on trends, on technology. I feel like we're on the cusp of this new AI generation. Things are going to become much simpler to do. There's going to be ways to optimize that business that were never possible before. And most people, when they get to that part of their lives, they're just not really that interested in learning a new thing and figuring it out. So you might be sitting on a gold mine for someone else. And if you make a good enough deal with them, that could be your gold mine a little bit too. So I think the best thing to do if you're a business owner is start networking with young entrepreneurs, maybe people that are in college, or people that you're networking with at things like the Chamber of Commerce events or stuff like that. There are people out there who buy businesses. And I don't think it's normalized enough. And I think that a lot of people who might be great buyers of businesses don't realize that they can do it because they don't have a lot of money. But you don't actually have to with this seller financing. Cody Sanchez says that 60% of businesses are sold as seller financing. And I don't think many people know that. It's not normalized because the banks are the ones doing all the advertising, and they're the ones like teaching us about how to be in business and stuff. And they really want to be all involved, but they don't need to be. It's your game. You can negotiate it any way that you want to. And if you find a win-win, a business that you want, or a person that you want to buy your business, you can negotiate that. They can take it over with your supervision for a while until they kind of get their training wheels off. And, that can be, a benefit to you for many years to come. We're all living to be older, right? So, you might need that extra income till you're 95 or 120 or whatever. That's another new thing that's happening. We're going to be living a lot longer. So we have to take that into consideration too.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for that, Angela. So what we're going to quickly do here is I just have some comments that I'll quickly read. Do something you're passionate about, Angela. Okay, so that's what you're saying. Businesses in the US, especially those that involve buying properties of those nearing retirement age, can it be done in the UK? And has it been done by anyone Angela might have known? So again, and I think this is a two-way question, because what she's saying is the buying of businesses. Can businesses be bought in the UK? Yes, they can be bought. It's just that it's the principles would be the same. It's just that some of the, sometimes the laws in the US are different to that in the UK. But yes, businesses can be put in the UK. I think, Angela, over to you for the second part of the question where she says she's looking at the buying and selling of business. Have you done it? Do you know anyone that has done it? So if you want to just share your experience around this, that'll be great.
Well, I don't know anyone who's done it in the UK, but I know that people do it here, and I did it personally. So if you have any specific questions about my acquisition, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Now we have Akira who's going to be doing the spinner for us. So Akira, you have the sharing rights if you want to share your screen, and then do the spinner so that we do the giveaways and we finish off. So Akira is going to be doing the spinner for the first giveaway, which is the bundle of $4 to $6 worth of snacks to someone in the USA. So she's put all those from the US in the spinner. And so, Akira, over to you if you want to spin. So Garrett is you. So Garrett, Tim would be in touch to send over the snacks to you. So congratulations to you, Garrett. Now we're going to move over to the Amazon vouchers. So Akira, the Amazon voucher should be for every other person in the list, not just for those from the States. So I don't know whether you have two lists up. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I see. Okay. Oh, so Garrett's okay. Can we spin again? So the second spin was won by Kimberly. So Kimberly has won the second spin. So I think what Akira has prepared for. So Akira, did you prepare only one list? I think that's what might have happened.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. I don't know if we have enough time, but what we can do is while we ask Angela for closing remarks, what I'll do is we might have to do the spinner for the Amazon voucher separately, outside of the event, outside of this fireside chat, just because we have 58 people in attendance, and I don't think we'll be able to get that spinner ready in time for everybody to for all the names to be included. So please bear with us. Akira this is the first time she's doing this, helping me out on this. So she's not very familiar with the process. So please bear with us. What we're going to do for the Amazon voucher is that we'll do the spinner after the event. I'll do it myself and I'll reach out to those people. You obviously would have registered. I'll reach out to you personally, tell you that you've won it, and then send over the Amazon voucher. So please bear with us on that. Now, what we're going to do is over to you, Angela, as we round up. Do you want to leave us with any closing remarks before we go?
I want to encourage people to take non-traditional routes to things. I've never taken traditional routes, and it's always led me to interesting destinations. I think that's why people tend to notice me, is because I just do things. I get ideas. I get an intuition, and I run with them and find out, where that path goes. I think it's the path less taken sort of thing. And I'm working on some other sort of side things that I might mention that may or may not come to fruition, but just so you know, I've always got irons in the fire. I'm working on a project for an underwater sculpture park in Tacoma. And I'm really excited about the fact that we might actually be able to think like ancestors and and leave some of these giant concrete marine grade sculptures in the water for future generations to find. And it also will bring life back to our shores and help with the environment. So that's really cool. I'm also working on a local VC fund for small business acquisitions so that people they don't want to take the risk of buying a business by themselves. Maybe we can get a conglomerate of people together to sort of keep our more iconic local businesses around for future generations. And something that I've been talking to William Factory about maybe figuring out how to produce is I'd like to have like a Shark Tank for creatives. So, most of the businesses that I'm advocating for are not scalable, but a band with a great album is quite scalable. An author with a great book is quite scalable. And there's all kinds of art forms that actually are scalable if they have the right resources and connections. And so I think that it would be fun for us to put together a little video series for Weekly Volcano where we bring in investors who want to invest in these creatives and see how far we can take them, put Tacoma on the map internationally as a place where we incubate creators.
Wow, 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 wow. You, as Simon says, thank you very much, Angela. You're a real inspiration. And, I couldn't agree more. Those are very bold, interesting, inspiring, dreams that you have there. And I, if there's any way I can contribute, please let me know. So many things there sound interesting already to me, and I'm sure we'll find ways to collaborate in the future, Angela. But thank you so much for inspiring us and coming on, sharing your experience and your time with us. It's really been a great honor to have you on. So thank you very much. Again, just before we go for the Amazon vouchers, again, this is the first time we've crossed the 60 mark in terms of attendance. So we're very, very happy to have that milestone. So thank you very much to everybody that came. I will do the spinner after the event just because we're not able to get it done during the event, but I'll do it and I'll reach out to the 2 people that have won the Amazon voucher to let them know that they have won it. Okay, so thank you again for your time. I will be reaching out for our next Fireside chat in October, and I hope you all had a nice time. So thank you, Angela. Take care.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay, take care. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye.
Bye, doctor.